Carlos T. Carter is a native Pittsburgher and the executive director of the Homeless Children's Education Fund. Prior to joining HCEF, he was a consultant for the Holy Family Institute / Holy Family Academy and held various VP roles in the banking industry for more than 15 years. He has a passion for helping underserved children and families and continues to build upon the 18-year HCEF Foundation. He has received many accolades, including being a 2019 Lead Now Pittsburgh Fellow, the Pittsburgh Magazine 40 Under 40 Award, National Diversity Multicultural Leadership Award, and New Pittsburgh Courier Man of Excellence Award. He received his MBA from Robert Morrison University, BS in Business Administration from University of Pittsburgh, and an AS from Community College of Allegheny County. He is a graduate of Leadership Pittsburgh LDI XV. In his spare time, he enjoys singing, reading, acting, working out, line dancing, and watching his son's sporting activities. He has 3 sons, Elijah, Dalen, and Isaiah, and has been married to his beautiful wife, Marcia, for over 20 years. He is a motivational speaker and is in the process of writing his very first book.
That is true. I'm editing it now. I'm in that phase. So thank you guys.
Yep, please welcome Mr. Carter.
Thank you so much. So so again, thanks for having me here. Today, I just want to, first of all, more importantly, I want to leave a lot of time for you guys to ask questions. I want to take maybe 20 minutes or less to kind of talk about myself, like who I am, a little bit about my journey in career transitions, and give you guys some things that I think that help people to be successful. And then let you guys ask me questions if that's okay. And if something's just burning you, feel free to interrupt me, and that's okay. So actually, I was going to start. Let me see if I can share my screen here. I didn't create a presentation, but I was going to show you guys a picture of me in high school, so you might get a good laugh. Actually, let me see. Here we go. Yeah, that's me in high school.
Wow, you look different.
You said I look different.
You still look the same. I think you still look the same.
I guess that's subject to interpretation. A lot of my schoolmates think so, but it's all good. Like wine, we get refined. Now let me stop this year. So basically, just a little about myself. I mean, you read my bio, which is great. It's funny reading that. It sounds like you're reading about somebody else. It's kind of weird. But basically, I grew up in Pittsburgh. I grew up in a Duquesne area initially. Which is, it was a lot more vibrant then. I grew up actually in the projects there back in the day. And then, to a family, it was 3 of us. I grew up in a single family home. It was my sister, Leah, me, I'm the middle child, and my brother, Ronique. I had a decent childhood, had some ups and downs, but the thing that really was a challenge for me, I didn't have a relationship with my dad. I actually didn't even know what he looks like, actually. My mom always said we looked alike, and she didn't lie either. I met him later when I was 24. Years old, but was always a curious child. I mean, I enjoy riding my bike, playing outside with my friends, just trying to create things, just being adventurous. I was less of a pretty boy then. I was catching snakes and animals. I always was into like all types of stuff. I like that, but just very curious about the world. And so much so, you guys can't relate this because you use Google, but back in the day, they didn't have Google. Google was like an encyclopedia, and they were very expensive too. And so, I asked my mother so many questions all the time, was so curious that, she couldn't afford it, but she said it took over a year to pay for them, but she got encyclopedias. She said, I just asked her too many questions. And I remember one time she said she was in the kitchen working on cooking a chicken, and my mother is very squeamish. And she said, I said, Mom, didn't that chicken used to walk? And I just totally freaked her out. but yeah, I was always curious, always feisty, usually smiling as I am now. I think they called me Smiley. And actually, I'm more thin now. But when I first was, they said I was a thick baby, but I was always skinny because my dad is pretty skinny as well. My mother was when she was younger. They called her Chickie because she was so skinny. And then in 4th grade, we moved to the Wilkinsburg area. And so Wilkinsburg Homewood area. So that's how I actually transitioned into city schools. I went to Gladstone, which is now abandoned. I think they're doing some type of community development there now. And middle school was a very fun time. Then I transitioned to Perry. Perry then was a magnet school. So I know Perry has had some challenges now, but back in the day, back in the day, Perry was one of the premier schools, not only with sports, but also academics. And people really, when they had that magnet school program, they really fought to get in. My mother had to be in line, like to get me in there was really a sacrifice. And, even some people today are really top-notch people from Perry, even some people in leadership at the at the Pittsburgh Public Schools are a product of that. Ebony Pugh, Erica Fairbree, who's an executive, she was there as well. Dr. Dara Ware Allen, who's now the head of City High Charter, but she used to be an executive with PPS as well. So some great people. And I turned out okay. I'm not saying I like them, but I'm me. So that's all that matters. So, but high school for me was a time, wasn't always easy, just really trying to define who you are. And I had experienced certain traumas growing up that I didn't talk about till I was later. And they kind of shaped who I was and even put me more in a shell. But it's when I learned to deal with a lot of my issues and things that I dealt with, it really kind of brought me out of my shell. But again, I was always pretty, outgoing. I always liked to sing. My family didn't think I could sing, but I always did. That's when I was like, you could really sing. I was like, I always thought I could. I didn't. No. And so I didn't do a lot of sports. I was always athletic, and so I was always in pretty shape, and showing off doing the push-ups and sit-ups, and think I can still do some now, actually, by the grace of God. But like just in some areas I wasn't as confident as I needed to be, so I didn't take advantage of those. I did go out for cross country, but I didn't want to keep staying after school. Track a little bit. I think I just ran in the city championship. That was it. So I didn't do all that. And the funny thing is, my sons are super athletes. I mean, my one son plays college. Basketball, just ended at Shippensburg University as a pre-med student, but he's shifting from being a physician's assistant now. He wants to be a nurse anesthetist, but he's there. My oldest son is he's actually just working. He went to school, but he was focused more on partying, and so we had to unenroll him because we weren't willing to fund that major. And then my youngest son goes to CCBC. And so, when I was in school, I wanted to be many things. I mean, because I think, what we want to be always transitions and evolves. I mean, I remember when I was little, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to be a fireman, an actor, a basketball player. You name it, I wanted to be it. I actually put out a video this week called I Want to Be, where I kind of talked about that as a 2-minute video on my YouTube channel. But, there's so many things. And so even as you guys are looking at where you are now, things are going to evolve. Everything's not finite. But I think at the end of the day, you want to be the best version of yourselves. You want to follow your dreams. You want to do something that you're going to enjoy and can have the standard of living that you want, and so don't let people just put you in a box. Unless college is important, it's a gateway there, but at the end of the day, you have to educate yourself in some way, whether if you're I can't remember the guy who's a Bill Gates who started Microsoft. I think he educated himself in some way. I'm not sure if he went to college, but he may have educated himself on the fly. However you educate yourself, but most way is college or some sort of career, but you have to learn some sort of skill. And so how can you take what you're passionate about and change that? And so when I came out of college, I wanted to be a lawyer because I was pretty feisty. I had no problem standing up for myself or advocating for myself. That was one problem I never had, actually. I was better at it than I think my mother wanted me to be. Like I remember one time, don't do this. I was in my English class, this lady, actually, we didn't like each other at first, but she became my most favorite teacher and my best advocate. And I noticed for me, a lot of teachers that we would have challenge and conflict, we would become really close. Because I think for me, they had to kind of earn my trust and respect. And I was one who commanded respect, I think because respect is a mutual thing. I don't encourage my kids to be the way I was. I say, let your dad handle it, don't you do that. So I discourage them to be different, but I always had the ability to advocate for myself. And I think that's important to do it constructively. Some people curse people out and things like that, but learning how to use your mind and your intellect, that you don't have to curse people out, learning how to manage and resolve problems in a constructive way is important. And so that was part of my wanting to be a lawyer, but I decided not to do that. So I ended up going to college and becoming, I went to CCAC first. I was accepted to other schools. I think Cal U, Penn State, Beaver, and I think maybe Pitt at the time. But I didn't really want to go to Pitt because, I did later, but because I was in Upward Bound, which is a program to help inner city kids and minorities, just kind of advance, giving them basically insight in some of the subjects that they would take the next year to kind of give them an advantage. But to me, I didn't feel like the program gave me an advantage from that perspective, but it did connect me to a community and a network of people who believed in me. It was fun. You got a stipend. And I think just those relationships and knowing that I had additional support really helped to propel me forward. And actually, I got in the program because I had a conflict with that teacher that I went away from. I was talking about it on a tangent at a pre-senior moment. But the teacher, Mrs. Tolliver, was my English teacher. And I was in class and someone said, say Sunshine City real fast. And so I said, Sunshine City, Sunshine City. If you say that real fast, you'll actually say something else with the S word. And I had gone from city to the other word. And so she told me, I want you to write 100 times that you will not use your name as a waste receptacle. And and I said no. And I didn't do it at first for a while. And she put me out of her class. I was out of her for like a week. Again, I was stubborn. I remember even talking about advocating. I even had reached out to the Board of Education to complain. I was something, yeah. Like my mother didn't do it. I did it. I had no problem. I didn't think not to do it myself. But that same initiative in that case may not have been as positive, but I think it has helped me to be who I am today, and to advocate for children and families as I do today, and to advocate for my own family and my people and all people who are marginalized, and other people. I never like to say I'm a voice for the voiceless, because everybody has a voice. You know, even if you're not able to speak audibly, you can write, you can use Braille. There's so many different ways to communicate. And so our job is to elevate the voices of people, not to speak for them, but to create a space where their voices can be heard, and where they're even empowered to share their voices themselves. And so, but that teacher, I eventually caved in, and I did write it. And she considers me like one of her best students ever. And actually, I was a keynote speaker at Woodland Hills in 2018. They asked me to come and speak to the teacher. I spoke to 40 to 50 teachers because it was after, I think, not Trayvon Martin.
Antoine Rose.
Yeah, Antoine Rose, yeah. And it was just a lot going on. And they really wanted to do something different that year. They wanted, teachers just kind of to be inspired and a message. So I said, why don't I come up with, because I'm good with coming with ideas. I said, why don't I come up with how my teacher changed my life? And the whole goal was to remind teachers not what they do, but why they do it. And she said, it's a tough crowd. I said, I guarantee you I could touch their hearts. I had a standing ovation and people were in tears. And I use my various gifts, because when I told myself when I speak as a motivational speaker that I want to have the courage to bring all of who I am to all that I do. And so I use my voice of song. I started off with What About the Children? I just started singing. And I ended with Stevie Wonder's Love in Need of Love. And so I just wanted to send that message of reminding them why they do what they do. And I even talked about my ACA, I think it's my ACE score, basically it's your trauma score. And I told them what mine was. And I said, what does that mean? People were acting shy, and I made somebody tell me. And I told them, the biggest factor in kids overcoming challenges and trauma is a loving and caring and supportive adult. And just kind of giving them that sense. So hopefully I made an impact, with them, but that was, part of my journey as well. And so, in college, like I said, I went to CCAC, that's where I met my wife. And, I had dreams of, I'm gonna be a lawyer initially. I'm gonna go to, before I switched to business, I'm gonna go to Howard, but, things change. I actually was doing too much studying, and my girlfriend became pregnant. So we actually were young parents in college. But I said that to say, I laughed, it wasn't funny then, but things happen in life, right? Sometimes people make you think, oh, just because this happened, you can't move forward. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people find a way over hurdles. And so you have some people that aren't successful. People may see them as different names, crackheads, this and that, but those are people who probably had opportunities, but they couldn't overcome their challenges for whatever reason. What I've gone through, what some even you guys have gone through here, you should probably be one of those people, but by the grace of God, we're not. But a lot of it has to do with the support we have, the choices that we make, because our decisions make a difference. They can make us or break us. One wrong decision, I'm not saying you can't ever make a mistake, but our decisions can definitely choose a path for us that's not good. But so that was one thing, but I was still determined. Actually, that semester I had straight A's. I had never had straight A's before in college, but I had straight A's that time. And my girlfriend at the time, she was a nursing student. She had to take a break, and I kept encouraging her to pursue her education, because I told her, I said, I want you to be with me because you want to be with me. I never want you to just be relying on my income. I always want you to have a skill as a woman and as a person. And that really paid off later when I had a job loss. So I'm like, I'm glad I made that investment. But seriously, I have a great wife. I've been married for 25 years, actually. We've been together for 30 years. I'm 49, so we were together since I was 19. But we met at CCAC, and she went back to school and finished. She got 2 associate degrees there. She's a nurse now at AGH, been doing it for many years. And so then from there, once I finished there, I transferred to Pitt, and I was on a business path. I decided that I want to go to lawyer path because I felt like lawyers lie a lot, and I feel like I'm not a good liar. I don't like to lie. Honestly, that's why. And so I didn't do it for that reason. And so I'm pretty much a straight shooter. And so I went to Pitt, and it wasn't easy, right? I was working, I was really grinding, but that's important. I like what they say, the only place where success comes from for work is in a dictionary. And so you have to be willing to work. Without that, there are very few things that can be accomplished. And, and there's some people may be smarter than you, but if you can outwork them, and be strategic about that. It makes a difference. I had to go to school in the summers. I didn't like it. Sometimes I remember coming home late at night, but you know, I made a choice, right? I had a child that I don't regret, but I still was determined to succeed despite that. And we did. And we were fortunate to have family support, but we had to put in our work. And I always wanted to get my master's degree. So from there, I transitioned. Well, I started working in banking. I'm sorry, I got it. Well, before I actually even went to banking, I was working at the university in a dietary, actually, and they had made me a supervisor there. And how I became a supervisor, again, there was a conflict. And they were impressed with how I advocated for myself. I had no problem writing. So I wrote this letter and they were impressed. And again, I don't know what they thought of me or thought of people like me, but when they saw my letter, they were like, whoa. And so they got me into a leadership program at the university because they were trying to get more people who look like me in different roles. And so they assigned me to different mentors. And through those mentoring relationships, that's how I ended up in banking. Because when I graduated, when I was in a mentoring relationship, I was like, man, I never articulated it, but I was like, man, I hope his name is Al Harris. I was like, I hope he helps me, you know, get a job, you know. And one day he said to me, he was like, I like you. You would interview well. My wife is the head of corporate staff, and give me your resume. I'm like, hook a brother up. and so from there, I applied and I got several job opportunities. So that thrust me into the banking world. Who would have imagined that I would have been in the banking world? And I was shipped to Boston because of Mellon Bank, which is the predecessor to BNY Mellon and actually even kind of Citizens Bank locally, and where I had to be there and learn a lot. And that was a great experience for me. So I transitioned to different roles in banking for many years, actually 18 to be exact. And then I wanted to become a relationship manager. And what a relationship manager does pretty much is he or she pretty much works with a corporate, retail, and smaller businesses or larger businesses, you know, helping them with their lending needs and banking and finance needs. And so the skills that I needed for that, I needed to have analytical skills, so to be able to understand financial statements, good interpersonal skills. And so those are great skills that I got to be able to analyze businesses and companies. And I actually use that now in my role now as a leader of the Homeless Children's Education Fund, which I'll talk about soon. But as I said, there's different bumps and turns, you know, that you go in your journey. And so you just have to be able to still believe in yourself and navigate and overcome obstacles to get there. And so I was in banking for many years because I really wanted to be a relationship manager, but I made it to that. You know, there weren't many people who looked like me in that position. But I didn't let that discourage me, you know, because most people, especially Black people specifically in the bank, were either in a branch, which weren't good paying jobs, but my job was a 6-figure paying job, you know. There, people always told me I was balling, but I didn't know it until I didn't have a job anymore. I was like, oh, I was balling. I didn't realize it. Because to me, it was like, no big deal. I'm just, you know, doing, you know, what I need to do. But like what helped me was navigating relationships. So like when you see something that you want to do or be, don't be afraid to go and ask people who are doing that. And so I didn't have a lot of professional people in my family. My mother worked at the post office. My dad was a truck driver, but I didn't even, you know him at that point, not till later, initially. And so, but I always knew I wanted to do certain things, but I'm thankful that my mother always told me that I can be anything I wanted to be. And so it's important the words that we speak to ourselves, you know, and others, because when you have limitations of what you can be, or you think you're just limited by what you see, that's a lie. You can be anything, you know. Of course, it's based on your talents, interests, and skills, because everything is not for us, but really being able to look internally and see who you are and what you can bring to the table. And sometimes, right, you can do more than you even thought you could do. Like, for example, I got a D in chemistry. We were horrible in that chemistry class. So was a teacher too. He wasn't a good teacher, and we were terrible. Like, we would all crack gum. Like, I didn't even know how to crack gum. The guys from the football team taught me how to crack gum. We would crack gum so loud every time the teacher turned around. He couldn't even teach. It was so bad that across the hall they were complaining. You know. But when I went to college in chemistry, I got an A. At CCAC, I had a tutor to help me. So I had a D in chemistry and I got an A in college. And actually, even my grades in high school were okay. Everybody else thought I was very smart. They always thought I was smart for whatever reason. They always thought that. But in high school, I really started to do well later. In middle school, I did well. In high school, I did well. In the end, with that teacher, you know, really encouraging me, and I was able to continue that in college. So even though you didn't do well in high school, right, it's nice to have a good foundation to not do poorly and say, oh, I can do well later, because that foundation is important. But I'm letting you know that it's not over for you, that you do have abilities and capacities that you don't realize. How did I go from getting a D in chemistry to getting an A at CCAC? I had to work my butt off, I will say that, and I had help. And don't be afraid to get help, right? And I'm jumping back and forth, but like, so in the banking world, like I said, it was lucrative, but I wanted more. And even they would tell me, and the people that I work with, they made a lot of money, more than I did, but they weren't always the nicest people. You know, they talked about people, they could be mean spirited, and people say, Carlos, you're not like them. They would always tell me that you're different from these people. But even those people that were perceived as mean spirit always told me, it's like, Carlos, you're smart. They said, you should be on doing even more. You're going to do something special in the world one day. But I think what they saw my heart for people, my love for people. Like I always say, I'm a student of the world, but I'm a lover of the people. And I think that they saw that. And I tried to be a light. In spite, they would say, why are you so happy all the time? They'd always tell me that, you know, and that doesn't mean that I never had days that I weren't happy. I dealt with personal challenges, professional challenges, but I believe that joy is a choice joy is a choice you make when you choose to count your blessings instead of adding up your troubles. And so I always try to not be Pollyanna, meaning where I'm like in a pie in the sky, la la land. Maybe I am sometimes, but I like to be optimistic and see myself as not a victim, but a player. And there's a video called Be a Player, Not a Victim. I love it. And it just talks about focusing on what you can control. You know, say if you're always late to class, you may say, you may make a lot of excuses why, but there's choices we could have made. We could have left earlier. We could have gotten up. And so focusing on what you control, or if you drop a pen, it says like, why did the pen drop? You guys tell me, why did the pen drop? One of the students, why did the pen drop?
Because you chose to drop it.
Exactly. That's being a player. Other people say, oh, gravity pulled it down. No. And so I think when we can focus on our Lotus of control, that which we control, we become a player and not a victim. Because when you're in a victim, you don't have any opportunity to change your circumstance. You know, given what I went through, fatherlessness, the many challenges, a lot of brokenness that existed in my family as a whole, I should be in jail. I should be either dead, I should be shot, you know, because there were enough shots going around when I lived in Wilkinsburg back in the day. I was in Chirac back in the early 90s because it was crazy. I mean, there was a lot of bullets flying, you know, but I'm not, because I think we made choices, you know, different choices. And there's sometimes things do happen that people don't have control of themselves, but most times we do have more control than we think. And so when I transitioned out of the banking world, like I said, I wanted more, I wanted to do more. I'd always thought about going to nonprofit, but I didn't want to take the pay cut. But then, you know, I was working as a banker and, you know, you have the sales goals and it wasn't working out. And so I need to consider my options. And since I didn't, I was let go and I had to leave. And it happened to me a couple of times. And through that really, you know, I became depressed. I became discouraged. And one of my favorite quotes, you know, the power of hope. So I want to encourage you young people, no matter what's going on, to have hope for the future. You know, they say you can go 40 days without food, 3 days without water, but in 8 minutes without air, but not a second without hope. Hope is critical. And so what really got me out of my situation was my faith, but also really having hope and realizing that my job doesn't define me. And, you know, when things happen, not letting the mess or challenges define you, but let them refine you. You know, I love this shirt that I have here. I love it. See, that's the value of being him. It's called The Struggle Made Me. A young motivational speaker. He used to play for Ohio State. Now he plays for Youngstown. He's a friend of mine. We became friends with mutual interests on the internet, and I bought that shirt from him. But I love it. But I told him that the struggle made me, but it doesn't define me, right? So my struggles have made me better, but they've empowered me to have greater empathy to others, to have more grit, you know, to deal with tough situations. I just learned how to channel it. So, you know, I came out of the hood, but in the hood, but not of the hood. And so I can take that grit and resiliency, overcoming challenges, and channel that and refine that in a positive way. And so it enables me to, I think, do better than those who've had privilege, who haven't had to have the struggles that I've had or that you've had, right? We all have struggles. And I don't care what your financial status is, rich or poor, everybody has struggles, right? It's just that unfortunately, people who don't have a lot, or poor people, and especially even some people of color or whomever you are, get, you know, sometimes what they say, twice the bad and half the good. But I think that we have to be empowered and realize that we do have power. Yes, there are systems that are great, that can be overwhelming, but we do have power. And so again, through that experience, me bouncing back, thank God I had support, because some people don't have that support. And I feel like through that experience, I really got to know myself, and I got to realize, you know, I'm not defined by what I do. I'm defined by who I am. You know, I believe that there's an intrinsic value, meaning an internal value that each of us has, and determine what that is. And unfortunately, society and you young people, I feel for you, because you have the pressure of social media. You see people on there, you know, doing so well, people booed up, got the best girlfriend, then, but you know, behind the scenes, they're fighting, you know, but everybody can create a world on social media, and it And when we compare ourselves to others, that's the worst thing we can do. I've been guilty of that. And we'll think that, we don't measure up, but you can only compare yourself against your potential and who you are. Everybody's different. And even when I think of diversity, I think in terms of, I always talk about a symphony, right? If you're a harp, be a harp. If you're a trombone, be a trump. If you're a drum, whatever instrument. So being an instrument that you are, because when you're not being the instrument you are, the world is missing out, right? If you just have all drums or all one instrument, it's a bunch of noise. But when you're the instrument, when you're being who you were created to be, you are really adding an impact. I like, one of my favorite quotes is that, the meaning of life is to, it's a quote by Picasso, if somebody knows it, jump it up, is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. And so figuring out, what are your gifts? What are your talents? And explore that. Willing to take career tests, ask people, what you're good at, what you like. And the perspective on careers that I really like is, what problems do you want to solve in the world? And thinking of that as well. And I think just because if we're in a situation that's unfortunate, that we don't have to necessarily be in a social service field, there's other ways. If you're an attorney or there's other ways to contribute, even financially, right, to different struggles. So I don't feel like you just have to go into social service field, even though I'm in there, but I've chosen to do that. I wasn't always in there. And so I said a lot. And so after I got through that experience through transitioning out of banking, and I got depressed and had to bounce back, I started doing consulting for Holy Family Institute, because I was on their board, and they asked me, could I help them with the new school? And so I did that a couple of times in between jobs, and that was a great experience. And it was there that I really felt a sense of connection. I felt like the people that I work with there, I could connect with. It was people who believe what I believe. It was a lot different. Not saying that people were bad in the corporate world, but it was people that I really kind of could connect with. You know what I mean? And through that, they saw things in me. Like, they encouraged me to, like, I come up with a lot of original quotes, and they kept saying, I'd be speaking, they said, where did that come from? I said, me. They're like, get out of here. I'm like, yes. So they encouraged me to start writing it down. And so that's how I created my website. I started creating blogs, and people around the world like what I do. I went viral twice last year. I didn't do it to went viral. 200,000 people like on LinkedIn. They love me. I wrote, will the real leader stand? Oh, no, the first thing I wrote was, get out. No job is worth your sanity. I just wrote it. People went crazy. I had people from Australia to UK. So now people around the world, I think like maybe 150,000 people liked it. It was shared maybe 6,000 times. There was like maybe 5,000 comments. Then I also wrote the next month, I was on a plane and I wrote, will the real leaders stand up? We need more leaders and fewer bullies in the workplace. But it was actually positive. I gave 10 keys that I thought were for stand-up leadership. I think over 200,000, almost 200,000 people like that. I have people from Australia. And so it's kind of put me on an international stage. And actually, I actually spoke to people in Australia, I think like a month and a half ago, a young man from Australia. And so I talked to young people about how they can discover their greatness, because in my motivational videos and speeches, I always end up with greatness awaits you. Like my shirt, I was showing them earlier. I have hoodies and stuff to say greatness awaits you. And what that means is that when you're authentic, when you have the courage to be your authentic self, when you live your passion and purpose, when you live a life that inspires and empowers others, I call it living bigger. I was like the keynote speaker in April at Point Park, and for MLK Day, I was a keynote speaker, and I came up with live bigger than you. And so living a life that inspires, empowers others. And so when that's part of your life, it's important. But more importantly in life, we want to be happy. In my video, you can check it on my YouTube channel. It's at Seeds to Fruit Motivation. So seed, SEED, the number 2, fruit, motivation.com. And you can actually subscribe every Monday. I put out something inspirational. My one coming out this week is respect. It's called Aretha Said It Best. But all the things are about inspiring people to discover their value, passion, purpose, and the greatness that's within. So those are the themes that are part of all that I do. I'm jumping around and losing my train of thought. But like basically the next thing I want to talk about, transition to homeless children education fund. So while I was there, as I said, the people encouraged me to do certain things, write and speak, et cetera, and help me start Seeds for Motivation. But I actually transitioned to homeless children education fund while I was at Holy Family at the school, which I love working with the kids, but I knew I needed something more. And so I had to do that. And it was a very competitive process. They had me do reading tests, writing, all types of stuff. I've never done that for a job before. And then I had to give a speech, which that was my strength. So I talked about leadership and they were blown away. And the rest is history. And so here I am. And so, you know, at HCF, our mission is to advance the education of children and youth experiencing homelessness in Allegheny County. Right now, from the last count in the 2017-2018 numbers that we have, there are 4,128 kids experiencing homelessness. And what that means, not necessarily always on the street, but like living in cars, bouncing around from relatives. I mean, you yourself may have experienced that or currently or others. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But our job is to empower these kids, support them from advocacy, advocating for system change, meaning working with PPS, other districts, even legislators to make sure that laws and supports are there for these youth. With our various programs, we have our shelter programs. We're in many shelters in Allegheny County. And so our job, we have different programs, our building block programs. We kind of work with student, young people, you know, helping them with their homework, teaching them different skills, helping them with the social emotional, because it's not just about education, it's understanding how you feel and making them feel valued and supported and resilient, and actually being open to the possibilities, supporting and empower their parents to better support them and advocate for them, because parents are a key part to our success. But unfortunately, sometimes there are parents that aren't where they need to be, because, you know, some parents have experienced a lot of trauma too, and have things that they're dealing with, and sometimes they're not where they need to be to support the students to the best of their ability. So we try to help them. We also pay for kids to go through to field trips to kind of see broader perspectives, so enrichment programs, engage them with to STEM and STEAM programming, things that foster creativity and critical thinking. Like we had one young lady, we were able to get her to see a lake. She had never seen a lake before, and she asked if she needed a passport. But, you know, we want to be that passport to opportunity and perspectives for young people. We also gave out 2,200 backpacks. Well, this year only 2,000 backpacks and hygiene supplies to students around the region. Because, you know, some parents don't have the resources. And so we had one mother say that she didn't have to be ashamed this year because she had what she needed for her kids. We also provide scholarships. So if you guys have ever experienced homelessness at any time, you know, we give a $2,500 award, and it's actually an award, so you can use it for books, for food, childcare, whatever you need. We gave out 9 scholarships this year, or awards, excuse me. We're very proud of that. It's an interview process, but it's a good thing, and we're very proud of that. Just a lot of different in our team program, finally, where we're empowering kids, young people like such as yourself, to get on a path to college and career. So we help meet their immediate needs. We pay for prom for kids, food, getting them computers, but also more importantly, helping them to navigate the system, right, for financial aid, and really thinking and planning for the future and the possibilities, connecting the internships, kind of a lot what you guys do, Jeremy and Carla probably as well, but just specific to that population. But everything we do is about empowering kids to break the cycle of homelessness through education, because if you don't have a high school diploma or GED, you're 4.5 times more likely to experience homelessness. And when you're experiencing homelessness, the trauma around that, it impacts your ability to focus, your ability to be successful. And so we want to advocate for these young people. There are protections under McKinney-Vento. So you have rights. So if you're a student who's bouncing around, who you know, doesn't have a permanent address, the school should be providing this additional support. Transportation, of course, that's not really relevant at the moment now, an additional support. So just know that there are laws and resources out there for you. And I'll say it a lot, but so I'm gonna wrap up so you guys can ask questions. I don't know where we are for time, let me see. Oh man, I was flying away. I said 20 minutes. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. So I'll just quickly say this. You know, some key things to success, I think, or even you may have gotten it out of, you know, what I said is, you know, having faith and hope and vision for the future. So no matter what things look like, know that things can change, that you can be a player, not a victim. So there may be some things that you can't control, but focus on the things that you can control. You can try to get help for school. You can be the best version of yourself. You can stay out of trouble. You know, you can maybe try to get a job, but do what you can. That's all you can do. The second is, you know, being willing to work, right? As I mentioned earlier, the only place where success comes from work is in the dictionary. So be willing to put in the hard work, and the hard work, it's going to take you pushing through sometimes, even when you don't feel like it, but you know that there's something bigger that you're achieving. And so, you know, you have to sacrifice now to reap a lot, have a better life later. They say, if you do what's easy, life will be hard, but if you do what's hard, life will be easier. Number 3 is believing in yourself, right? I remember one time I had an interview and a lady said, boy, you're confident. I told her, if I don't believe it, who else will? You know, and so not being cocky, but believing who you are. You know, for me as a person of faith, I know that my strength in whether things that come from God. So I know it's just not me, right? But I have confidence in who I am and what's been created. So be confident in who you are and don't let people just degrade you. No, you are worthy. It doesn't matter how you dress, what you look like. You were created with a purpose. Walk in that and know that there's something for you to do. Even if your own parents don't appreciate it, you are valuable, you are special. And you're going to do great things if you resolve to do that. Overcoming obstacles, that, as I mentioned earlier, the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people find ways to get over hurdles. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and ask for help from the right people, because that is critical. And follow up is critical. Like many people, it's not how you start, but how you finish. Some people may be smarter than me, brighter than me, but guess what? This brother's gonna follow up. And so if you can follow up and be a person of your word integrity, man, that will set you apart. You'll out, do your peers. Number 6 is have a good attitude. Attitude is critical. Your attitude determines your altitude. Sometimes we have things that happen to us that we don't like, and we can have a bad disposition. But if you need help talking to somebody, a school counselor, getting mental health assistance, that's important because you want to have a good attitude. It impacts, how they say pain is inevitable, but misery is a choice. And finally is just be committed to lifelong learning. Always be willing to read. There's some people, they say if you want to hide money, put it in a book because they'll never go in there. But if you can go into books and learn, first of all, it escapes and learn so much and improve your knowledge of the world and things. Man, you can do amazing things. So I said a lot of things, and I apologize for not paying attention to the time I got swept in there. But please, I'll open up the door for any questions for you guys.
You said you went to CCAC, Pitt,
Yeah.
and what was the other school? So would it be, right?
Robert Morris for graduate school.
Okay, Robert Morris. Would you say it was hard trying to get in them schools due to the color of your skin? Like
That's a good
all
point.
3 of them?
No, it wasn't. Well, CCAC, not to knock CCAC, but like they don't like discriminate. If you have your high school diploma, if you have a pulse, and willing to work, you can get in. It's a great education and a great school, so I'm a big fan of CCAC. I'm friends with the president. I really like him. I was friends with the president before that. I've served on the diversity board. And I've sung their national anthem 4 times at graduation. So I'm a big fan of CCAC, but no, it's easy. And Pitt is a little bit more challenging. But I did well at CCAC. I was an honor student. And so it wasn't difficult. And now getting graduate school was hard. I forgot, like I didn't do well on the testing. And so on a GMAT to get in graduate school, I forgot about that. How could I forget? And so I was turned down. And I said, they're letting me in this school. I said, about to kick this door down. I didn't realize how aggressive I was. I was about to kick this door down. I'm coming into school. And I got through the appeal process. And guess what? I had honors. So I was able to do the work very easily. Yes, I was. Anybody else? Don't be shy.
Anyone else?
I know you're not shy.
Questions for Mr. Carlos? So in the chat, Mr. Carlos, we have Rebrea. She said, do you have any role models your age or older?
Well, I would say, since you guys are in high school, my mom was always a role model. I didn't have as many positive male role models. I had some uncles, but they weren't always where they needed to be. That was a very diplomatic way of putting it. But my mom was a big influence just of planting a lot of seeds. And she had her own struggles, right? But I think her let me know that I can do anything, to have good character, and to be willing to work. Man, those things have taken me very far. But my teacher, Mrs. Tolliver, was very impactful in my life. And actually, she wants me to be in her wedding. She says she's getting a wedding. She wants to be in her wedding. And
Wow.
Actually, I forgot to tell you guys, I brought her to the presentation when I did How My Teacher Changed Life. I surprised her and gave her the Best Teacher and Mentor Ever award, and gave her flowers and award. And so she was very tearful. So yeah. So, and there was another question. I want to make sure I answer that. What was the second question? Or I can look in the chat. There's something about. Let me see.
So Nikoye asked, what kept you positive in school? Because I know especially being online can make me lose motivation.
That's important. So, well, in high school, a lot of times I didn't always, I always had like at least a 2.5, 2.4, but I was obviously more than that. But I think just the personal things I was dealing with, trying to fit in, and just other things I was dealing with in my head, like I wasn't really talking about the things. And, especially for a lot of men, like we're the worst at that, right? They talk about silent sons. Society only encourages us to show power, to anger, jubilation, but men aren't encouraged to cry. But when you mess with an 8-year-old, people might say, "Oh, you're a sister, you're a punk," but they'll cry, right? Or a young kid. So that shows that we have the emotions inside. So being able to be vulnerable and deal with your emotions in a right space, I think that helps. But I was always generally optimistic no matter what was going on. I think it was my general nature, but I think the bigger thing for me is believing in myself and realizing that there was more for me, that there's something for me to do. So when you feel like you're working towards something, I think was very, very helpful to help, keep me positive. Because sometimes, trust me, I had meltdowns like, oh, I couldn't even imagine what you guys are going through now. I'd probably be having a meltdown, but just keep focused on what you're trying to do. That, anytime when you're about to achieve, what's important for you, there's always obstacles that pop up. Read the book, The Alchemist, I read recently. It talks about when you're about to achieve your personal legend or what there is for you, there's always things that'll come right at that moment when you're about to give up. That's when a blessing or breakthrough is. And so I encourage you to focus on the purpose that you serve. If you want to have one, you need to find one quickly, because in life you have to have a purpose that's bigger than you.
Absolutely. Michael, if you can unmute yourself, you can ask your question yourself, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I like voices.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I said, are you satisfied with your position now, like your job, or do you
I like
want
that.
to achieve more?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I do like my job, but I will say that you never know what the future may hold. Like, I enjoy being a leader of this great organization, but you just never know. So I wouldn't say that a great opportunity may come, but I will say while I'm here, I give my best, and I feel like the organization is very strong. And my goal is to leave people and places better than I found them. And I definitely believe my organization is in a great place. But no, I plan to be here right now. But you never know what could happen in the future. But I'm happy. I feel like I'm doing what I was created to do. I'm leading. I love leading people, and the board told me organization is the best in it. They said my team is the best in organization's history. I told them it's no accident. I choose people who are smart, who have good hearts, who are innovative, creative, who are kind, who work hard, and believe that impossible means nothing. But yeah, I'm very happy. Yes. I want to be happy. Yes, I am happy.
It's nice not being the only one randomly singing on the Zoom call.
Oh, I sing all the time.
That's usually on the
I'll dance. Yeah. No, that's just who I am. Yeah.
Jeremy does too. I want to know what to date, or what would you say is one of your greatest achievements or greatest accomplishments?
Wow, it's funny when questions like that are difficult for me, but I know one thing that happened that really made me feel good. When I did that keynote speech for at Woodland Hills, how my teacher changed my life, I really felt like I was on the top of a mountain, because I bared my soul. I spilled very personal things about myself. I told them all my business. I put my heart out there, and to a crowd that they said was a tough crowd. So it took courage for me, to get them and to share that, and in front of a crowd they said that was a tough crowd, and to win them over. They actually called me yesterday, asked me if I could do something for them. So for teachers or whatever. But so yeah, so that would be one. I think also too, getting through college, having a son, having a family. Then I had a second son when I was in graduate school. But yeah, it's funny. I need to reflect on that more, because I don't think about what was my greatest accomplishment. I'm always just moving. And just I had the vision of becoming a motivational speaker, and just actually becoming it. Because I said, I want to become a motivational speaker, right? And I researched it, and I said, no, I am a motivational speaker. So I have to, they know a tree by its fruit. So I need to develop fruit. So I started saying I am, and people started paying me to do it. Actually, soon I'll be probably speaking around colleges around the country. A guy really likes me and my message. I came up with a class called Leading with Confidence. And so he likes that. I actually developed for a nonprofit, because they came to me and said, our people aren't confident to work with them. And so I'll come up with stuff. I came up with Leading with Confidence, and people loved it. But yeah, I can't really say a lot of things. My family, right? I have amazing sons, and people have stereotypes about Black men, but my Black sons they're kind, they're smart. Not only athletic freaks of nature, they're intellectual freaks of nature, and they're just good people. And even when my one son was Post-Gazette's Fab Five for basketball, and even when he was Player of the Year, they said he's what do they call him? A high talent kid with high character, and so I like that. And I would tell recruits, you can find a kid, you can find an athlete anywhere, the dime a dozen, but you'll be hard pressed to find a child with my son's work ethic and character. And so I like that my sons are kind and are respected in the community, and people love them. Even superintendents say, your sons are great. They're not perfect. They make mistakes like everybody else, but they're good people. And so to me, I think that makes me very proud as a father and as a person. And I have an amazing wife too. So I'm surrounded by love, and I'm thankful for that.
What was your greatest challenge, and how did you get past it?
In what perspective? Just
in your journey, which was the greatest challenge?
Well, I would say kind of like when I was transitioning out of the banking world, I really didn't know what was going on. And I told you I'd become depressed and just a lot was going on. And that was a big challenge for me because people are used to me being like I am, like super excited, and I actually was a hot mess, you know? And so, you know, and to be honest, I didn't know I was going to live or die at that moment. That's how I felt. I had lost hope. And as I mentioned, you guys, I said you can't live 1 second without hope. So like really overcoming that and realizing that as I used to articulate or say that my value wasn't connected to my job, I actually was connected to that. And so really finding that intrinsic value that I tell you and believing in myself. Because one guy said to me, Carlos, how many times can you reinvent yourself? And this was a nice guy. And that was like devastating when he said it to me. My wife was like, no, God has a final say. And now like I'm doing all types of things that aren't too bad, you know, and, you know, people want me to speak, listen, you know, so I'm thankful. So I think that would probably be absolutely. But that same thing has made me a better person, has made me feel, you know, invincible. Any more? Fire away.
I was gonna say, is there any more questions? Mr. Jeremy's trying to. Okay.
Yeah, there was one Rebrea put in the chat. Might need you to clarify this for us, Rebrea, but she said if you can change anything now or then, what would it be? Rebrea, do you mean anything like about his career or his life or just
I mean, like if he could change anything now or in the past, like what would it be?
Just anything in the world?
Anything in the world or anything like what he was going through and stuff.
Okay, well, one thing I'll say with some of the challenges I went through, I wouldn't necessarily change it because I believe that it has made me the person that I am today. It has given me the empathy for other people. Like even sometimes later, sometimes I hear my student story and it moves me to tears. You know, I said I become a wimp in this job, but that doesn't make me less of a man, you know, to be moved to tears. So my experiences, I didn't like them all, but again, they made me the person I am. I can write the things that I write today. I can share the things I share today that impact my life, but also others as well because of that. But if I could change one thing in the world, I would like, you know, people not to really like have so many limitations. I feel like a lot of times we change ourselves and what we could do. I'd like people to believe that anything is possible for them. And I remember one guy said that who had a disability, who was I think in a wheelchair, that he was always surprised at how many able-bodied people have disabilities, and so a lot of it is up here. And so I wish people could see that anything is possible for them, but not only themselves, but others. I feel like a lot of times we beat down other people in certain groups, and we speak death into people instead of speaking life. But yeah, I wish people would think everything was possible for themselves and others, that we didn't just put people in a box, stereotype them because of what they look like, their race or gender or sexual orientation, whatever, but that we just believe that everything is possible. That's what I wish would change. Gee, y'all got me going deep on here.
That's awesome. Well, Mr. Carlos, thank you so very much for your time and your passion and your wisdom and your insight. Can we have a mics off, like actual round of applause for Mr. Carlos, please?
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You guys as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.